Good afternoon, everybody. So this afternoon's video is going to be on making a basil pesto, because I've got lots of basil that I've just harvested from the aquaponics, and honestly there's probably enough there to do 3 or 4 batches with the Thermomix one anyway. So I'm going to be using the Thermomix again just because that's what I have available to me to use. So, and I'm going to have to modify the recipe again slightly because of the low reactive diet. Hopefully I won't be on it for too much longer and I can start introducing some other foods again, although it may end up being that some foods get removed which I'm again also not really looking forward to. But I'll be going back to see my clinical nutritionist on the 30th and we'll see what he says. Yes, but the low reactive diet is not my favourite diet to be on at all. So I'm going to be making some modifications to what this is. So this says you're supposed to have parmesan cheese, which I can't have the parmesan cheese, so I won't be using the parmesan cheese. But generally it'll be 80 grams of parmesan cheese. Then you've got 30 grams of pine nuts, which I'm actually going to be using cashews instead. 1 clove of garlic, which I will be adding. The 80 grams of fresh basil leaves. I've got 270 grams if you include the stalks. So we'll see how we go and how much I actually go with that. I've got heaps more in the garden that I can go pick if I need to. Then 150 grams of extra virgin olive oil. I can't have the olive oil at the moment, so I'm going to substitute what I can have, which is the sunflower oil. And then a little bit of salt. So the first step is to chop up the parmesan and put it aside in another container, which I'm not having the parmesan, so I'm going to skip that section. And then we've got add 30 grams of pine nuts, which I'd already measured that out nicely. So that made that simple. And then 1 clove of garlic. And I'm going to put in a couple of cloves. But that's optional. And I'm actually going to blend it up first because the cashews are a bit bigger than a pine nut. I'm going to blitz that first. So I might have to come back to this step later on. I'll save that where it is. Come back to this section. Right. That should have blitzed it up enough, because it's still going to get further blitzing. See, that's more of a pine nut type size. So we'll go back to the recipe. Oh, went too far because I've still got to put the right. So we've got the basil leaves. I've got lots of those. A lot of times when I make this, I actually put the stalk in it all, but at this point I don't need to. But I'm still going to put in fairly large chunks of it. It's going to have a very strong flavour, and that's okay. I love pesto. I love basil, so I'm hoping this is going to work well. That's why I'm only doing a small amount of the basil. I haven't completely taken everything off, and actually I put these off a couple of hours ago, so and then made lovely scrambled eggs for lunch. So it's been sitting on the bench for a little while, which is why it's looking a little bit wilted and sad. It was a beautiful night, picked up in the aquaponics an hour or so ago. And I should have probably had it sitting in a cup of water, because this would have just stayed beautiful and fresh. It would have been sitting in a cup of water. And if I left it in a cup of water for a couple of days, it would have sprouted roots. Okay, so that's 80 grams. Might just a little bit more in. Just because we haven't put the parmesan cheese in there, which might actually decrease the flavour. I hope the flavour's not going to be too strong. It's going to be interesting. This is not a usual version. Okay, so let's go with 150 grams of sunflower oil. Okay, it's that big bottle. One thing with cooking is you don't need to be exact and precise, which is good, because exact and precise is not something I'm very good at. Okay, what's next? Next we've got salt. Okay, so the next bit is 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm not going to measure that out thoroughly. I'll just put a few cracks in there of that. Now one of the other recipes in the Thermomix calls for some flat leaf parsley. I don't have flat leaf, but I do have some curly leaf parsley that I grew in the garden, so I'll pop that in. Let's go to the next step. So we insert, put on the lid. It says to insert the measuring cup, which it's talking about this section. Then we hit the next button and we blend it up. Now I might just pause it for a minute. And I'm going to scrape down the sides. And we'll get that nicely into the actual bowl. Show you what it looks like. So, look at that, isn't it beautiful? Now I had thought about making the basil pesto, but I was kind of inspired a little bit extra by Sweenies Creek Farm and by the Zoom and Bettie's channel. They're other members of the Shed Wars collaboration that I'm a part of at the moment, and they've recently done basil pestos as well. I don't think they've got quite as much basil as I have, but they've got a reasonable amount. Yeah, so it's all scraped down back into the bottom of the Thermomix bowl. Make sure that's all down there. Although it looks like it's all pretty good, really. Make sure I get that lid on properly. Otherwise it won't start. Start that up again. Let's do the last 6 or 7 minutes. 6 or 7 seconds. And it says serve immediately or transfer into jars and seal and store in the refrigerator. So yeah, okay, so I'll go get some jars. Okay, so I've got my little canning jars and my funnel. So let's spoon some of this in. And see how much we've got. Look, now I've overfilled that jar, haven't I? It's the one thing with my channel, I'll let you see everything, mistakes and all. When I screw up and when I get it right. Okay, so I'm going to see how I can sort this out. Now I've been doing some research and I can actually freeze this like this, or I can just leave it in the fridge for, it'll stay in the fridge for about 3 to 4 days. But the other option is to freeze it, so I'll be freezing a fairly large amount of this. So, yeah, so that's 1 jar of pesto, all set and ready to go. So I'll just pop the lids on and then pop some of them in the freezer. But I'll be back soon to show you how many I managed to fill. Okay, so that made up 4 little jars of pesto, which is all good. Now, this is probably not going to work so well. And I nearly forgot one important step. You need to put a little bit of oil on the top when you're storing it. That just helps to keep it preserved. Now, I didn't put any on the top one because Matthew wants to do a taste test. Not quite sure why I'm giving Matthew a taste test, but especially considering he's sick at the moment. But he's asked for one, so I'll give him a taste test. See how he likes it. He can eat it on crackers, I can't have a cracker. Do I have to share my pesto with Matthew? I think that means Matthew likes it. Which isn't bad, considering he's feeling miserable and sick and his taste buds are probably not quite working properly. But he likes it.
Can I have another one?
Apparently he really likes it. Lucky I've got a lot of basil in the aquaponics. I think he really likes it, even though he's feeling miserable and sick. And I'm sure the basil's really good for him to help him get better. And the garlic. I'm going to have a taste test now. Okay, let's see how I go. And I've got my plate that's the same set as Voon Child's again. Voon Child's a channel over in America. She's also part of Shed Wars. I think she's on Will It Grow's team. And they're about to start their Shed Wars very shortly. So yes, it always fascinates me how Voon Child on the other side of the planet has the same dinner set that I have. But this was actually my mum's when I was a kid. So yes, so let's try the basil on carrot sticks.
The basil dip.
Oh, that's nice. Now I will admit, sorry, I'm talking with my mouth full, aren't I? I will admit that it is nicer when it's got the parmesan cheese, but this is still really, really nice. So yeah, encourage you to get out there and grow some basil. And, well, when it's your growing season. We're coming into winter now, which is why I'm starting to harvest a lot more of my basil, because the basil is going to start dying off. The other thing that's really important with pesto is you can't, from what I can see, you can't actually can it from a typical perspective, so you can't do water bathing, and you can't, there's no regulations for the pressure canning, because both the basil and the oil are both low acid foods, but I'm by no means an expert on canning. So my little jars that I've got, I will be putting them into the fridge or into the freezer, depending on how much I end up with. And given that small amount of basil provided 4 jars, I will probably have a lot of jars.
I hope you have lots.
And Matthew hopes I have lots, because I think he really likes the basil pesto. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. And if you've made some pesto with your basil, leave a link below. Tell me what you thought of it too. And I'll leave links for Sweenies Creek Farm and their basil video pesto, and one for Zoom and Bettie and their basil pesto video. But yeah, you have a great one. Bless you. So that's what we got. 4 jars. Minus what we ate, so that one was actually full. So very excited. Now it's basil pesto made in the Thermomix, and it's just using the basic recipe cookbook, which is going to complain now because I've taken it out. So it's basically just the basic cookbook recipe chip that comes with the machine. So yeah, very exciting. Have a great one. Bless you.